All right, somebody needs to meddle in Chicago because things aren't going well there. A report emerged today from a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter who doesn't cover the Bears but has been a part of the Chicago scene for a long time, that Matt Nagy, the coach of the Bears, was told on Monday that he'll be fired after Thursday's game against the Detroit Lions. Here is Matt Nagy when he met with the media several hours ago, with the first topic, of course, being the veracity of the report that he's been told he's out.
And there's a report today that you had been informed that this will be your last game as president.
That is not accurate. I have not, I have great communication with ownership, with George and Ted and Ryan, but I have not had any discussions.
What have been your discussions with George and Ted and Ryan this week?
Just for this week, we have not talked this week, and that was scheduled. That's been we have a good schedule over the years where we have discussions. Like you guys always hear us talk about. We have constant communication. I always think it's good and healthy, and so we stayed on course. And with the bye week and then with the short turnaround with game prep, we have not.
Surprised that the Bears decided, and this is a PR decision, and I guess you would say it falls within that realm of reasonable minds may differ, but the Bears didn't react quickly to this report. They didn't put out a statement. It would have been very easy to put out a statement from ownership, not from the coach, but from ownership. Because here's the thing, if anybody's going to lie about this, let the guy lie who's leaving. We won't let the people who actually have told the guy who's getting fired that it's false. We won't have a statement from George McCaskey or Ted Phillips that it's false, because they'd be lying. Let's let the guy lie who isn't going to be here, because who cares if he didn't tell the truth 2 days before he got whacked? And I hadn't thought of that until just now. But why didn't you put out a statement? Why didn't you shout it down? And it festered for 3 hours. I wasn't going to do anything about it, but it caught fire. And then I did a little research. I see this guy won the Pulitzer. Well, that's good enough for me. So he wouldn't put it out there and attach his name to it if he didn't hear it from somebody that he trusted. So we'll see what happens. We have heard time and again, we just talked yesterday about broken ribs. Sunday night, ribs aren't broken. By Tuesday, ribs are broken. I mean, we see it all the time. And if they lose to the Lions on Thursday, or even if they win, I mean, if that's what he's been told and they win the game, and they should beat the Lions, wouldn't that be something? A guy gets fired after he wins a game? I'm not sure that's ever happened, Charean, other than to John Gruden.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know that it's happened either, Mike, now that you say that. So, yeah, that would be crazy if that happened. Maybe they have made their decision based on what happens Thursday. If they lose the game, they fire him. If they win the game, they don't. Bears, as we know, have never fired a coach in the middle of the season, and Hallis would have been firing himself for many of those years if that was the case, and that wasn't going to happen. It'd be like Jerry Jones firing himself as GM, and that's not going to ever happen. But maybe his future is hinging, his immediate future is hinging on this game on Thursday. And if they win, he keeps his job. If they lose, they don't. And it would be very strange if they win this game and they fire him anyway. And I don't know what would be the point of firing him on Thursday if they win this game, Mike. I don't see any point in that. But I do think Matt Nagy's days in Chicago are numbered, as in he is not going to be the head coach in 2022.
And, by the way, I was incorrect. The Raiders lost right before John Gruden was fired.
To Chicago, right? Was it to Chicago?
Yeah, they lost to the Bears. They lost to the Bears 20-9. Yeah. I thought for some reason they won. They won after he was fired, but they didn't win that game, that strange weekend between the leaks of the emails. But as to the Bears, when they traded up from 20-11 to take Justin Fields, I thought that was an indication that they've decided we're staying the course with Matt Nagy as the coach, with Ryan Pace as the GM, and with Ted Phillips as the president, because, frankly, at some point, Phillips has to be on the firing line because he's the guy who's been there for 20 years hiring the likes of Mark Trestman and Phil Emery to be coach and GM respectively. And at some point, you got to say the guy that we've put in charge of this team isn't getting it done. We need a new team president, because he's the one that brought these guys in. And to the extent that there was some sort of a collective decision that they were going to stay the course once they get Justin Fields and not fire Matt Nagy. The problem that they are running into here is if they fire Nagy now or later, you have to find a coach that is on board with Justin Fields, because there's a chance, just like you get a GM that's not on board with the coach, there's a chance you're going to get a coach who's not on board with the quarterback. What happened a decade ago in Denver? Josh McDaniels becomes coach of the Broncos. First order of their business was to run Jay Cutler out the door. They trade him to the Bears. So the Bears know exactly what can happen if you fire a coach, bring in a new coach, and you have a holdover quarterback. There's a chance that new coach, who will say all the right things to get that 5-year guaranteed contract, once he's there, that's when I'll worry about whether or not he likes the quarterback or doesn't like the quarterback or thinks the quarterback fits his system or whatever the case may be. So that's a real risk they're going to take if they fire Matt Nagy. But it could be that Ted Phillips is throwing Nagy overboard to save himself. Because I'm telling you, at some point, Phillips has to be on the firing line here. Most teams have that person who is the team president, who is in position, and they have different titles, but in position to claim credit when things go well, and in position to run for cover when things don't go well, and never held accountable, or rarely held accountable. It takes 15 or 20 years before ownership finally says, you know who part of the problem is? The guy who never gets fired. The guy who's hiring the guys that we're firing, maybe that guy needs to be fired. And I think that if this collapses in Chicago, it is time to hit the true reset button all the way up to the team president.
Well, this is a team, Mike, that hadn't won a playoff game since 2010, that wants a new stadium, that has everybody in the city chanting, "Fired Matt Nagy." I mean, we heard it at the Bulls game loudly last night. They want this guy gone. So it's hard to sell season tickets. It's hard to sell people on this team if Matt Nagy stays around. And it may go all the way up to Ted Phillips, and they need to hire better coaches than what they've hired recently because it hasn't worked out. Yes, they went 12-4 in 2018, but what did it end to? The double doink ends their season anyway in the first round. They can't even win a playoff game that year when they're 12-4, and then 8-8, 8-8, and now we know they're 3-7. Just not a very good team. It hasn't gone in the direction they've wanted it to go. And maybe they need to absolutely clean house and start over. And by the way, you talked about the quarterback. One of the teams that Russell Wilson's agent named in the offseason was the Chicago Bears, by the way.
Well, right, because that was Matt Nagy was there, and he thought maybe if I pair up with Matt Nagy, I get myself an Andy Reid-style Patrick Mahomes offense, I believe. Maybe the next step in the Russell Wilson saga in Seattle will be get rid of Shane Waldron and bring in Matt Nagy to be my offensive coordinator, although I'm not sure how Russell will feel about that after seeing how the Bears have gone lately. But Chicago, special town, great fan base, but the team just doesn't deliver. And for the dysfunctional teams, the common thread is ownership. And ownership typically does a good job of keeping their head low, their mouth shut, and their butts off the line. Because what can you do? You can't fire the owner. And no one has ever been forced to sell because the team is perpetually bad. Who has ever sold the team because they've just said, you know what, I suck at this. I'm not good at owning a team. I'm going to sell. No one does it. So you're just stuck. You're stuck until they do sell or until somebody in the family, somebody with the DNA that traces to George Halas, ends up landing in a position where that person has the skills and abilities and can lead the team out of the mess. It's one of the reasons why I love the NFL. You've got these billion-dollar organizations that ultimately are run like monarchies. And eventually, that team is going to get passed to somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, and it's going to be a mess. And I think that's part of the problem with a lot of these bad teams. It's the ownership.
Yeah.
But it's not obvious because they don't want it to be obvious. They want to have someone else to blame for the fact that the team is so bad.
The fish stinks from the head down, Mike, and it's a great quote, and it applies to the Bears as much as it applies to the Giants because with their history and what they've done here lately, it absolutely goes up to ownership and goes up to Ted Phillips, president of the organization, all the way down. It's just not a very good organization right now, and they need to do something to fix it.
Well, we'll see what they do, and we'll see if Matt Nagy is employed when Friday rolls around. Last year, that was the swan song for Matt Patricia, and it does give a team that's already had its bye week a mini bye to get ready for the next game because you fire the guy Thursday night. In theory, well, not in theory, in reality, you get a couple extra days. And I don't know that's going to matter, but it is going to give you some extra time to turn it around and see where it goes. The Bears, though, have never fired a head coach during the season.
Right.
And that has something to do with the fact that George Halas coached the team for 40 years. I never knew this, or if I knew it, I'd forgotten it. This amazed me today when I looked up George Halas's coaching record. He coached the team 4 different times, 10 years at a time. Like 10 years was all he could do it, and I'm done for a couple years. And he'd come back and he'd do it 10 more years. I'm done for a couple years. 10 more years, I'm done for a couple years. And then finally 10 more years, and he was done for good. But, yeah, he's not going to fire himself, just like Jerry Jones isn't going to fire himself as the GM, and the fan base just has to deal with it, Charean.
Yeah, and let's get the McCaskies in there as head coach. I would love to see that, right? I don't know that they could do any worse than some of the coaches that they've had here recently, but would love to see the McCaskies take over as head coach.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.